Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. It's the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 5, Chapter 16, Verse 16. And this is the descriptions of Jambudvip. So, if we try to understand these things through our materially limited perceptions, then it's not possible to see or understand what's being described here through our limited senses. But if we hear with faith and devotion, we can get realization, at least eventually. So sometimes people are attracted to Krishna consciousness and the philosophy and the teachings. It makes a lot of sense to them, Bhagavad Gita. But then when they come across the descriptions, the Vedic description of the universe, they panic. Because the way to perceive what's being described here is not in the usual way that we try to scientifically see things with telescopes or microscopes or spectroscopes or whatever scopes they're using. Because these things we're not able to perceive these things through our limited senses, even if we try to extend the range of those limited senses. It doesn't work because we can't extend the range of our limited perception enough to be able to perceive what's being described here. Because we're trying to use our gross senses to understand things that may be manifest on the subtle level. Not that they're imaginary or they don't exist, but they may exist on another plane. Just like there are demigods. Do we see the demigods walking around? Although it's said different times they have come to the earth planet and they have manifested a visible form. But usually they're not visible. Why? Because they're on another plane. Even their time scale is different. It doesn't mean they're imaginary or that they don't exist. It just means they exist on a different level of material nature, a more subtle level. Just like with our vision, our eyes as human beings, we can see within a range of the visible spectrum, the wavelengths of light within a visible spectrum. But there are other waves of light coming from the sun. There's the ultraviolet and the X-rays, and there are different rays that we can't perceive with our eyes. So there are levels of existence that we're not able to perceive through our gross senses. But by hearing about them, we can understand. And by the mercy of Krishna, through the pure devotees, we can actually gain realization of what's being described. So approaching in that way, we shouldn't become disturbed in our Krishna consciousness when we hear about mango trees that are 1,100 yojanas high. We won't become disturbed because we understand it's on another plane, another level of existence. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vyāsadeva Gaur Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Text 16. On the lower slopes of Mandara Mountain is a mango tree named Devachyuta. It is 1,100 yojanas high. Mangoes as big as mountain peaks and sweet as nectar fall from the top of this tree for the enjoyment of the denizens of heaven. Commentary by Prabhupada. In the Bhāgavata Purāṇa there is also a reference to this tree by great learned sages. Text 17. When all those solid fruits fall from such a height, they break, and the sweet, fragrant juice within them flows out, becomes increasingly more fragrant as it mixes with other scents. That juice cascades from the mountain in waterfalls and becomes a river called Arunota, which flows pleasantly through the eastern side of Ilavrita. So these things are going on the heavenly planets. It's attractive for those that want sense gratification. Attractive. A huge river of sweet mango juice. That's just one of the features. There's many features on these heavenly planets. Text 18. The pious wives of the Yakshas act as personal maidservants to assist Bhavani, the wife of Lord Shiva. Because they drink the water of the river Arunota, their bodies become fragrant, and as the air carries away that fragrance, it perfumes the entire atmosphere for 80 miles around. And we get heady on a nice spring day. We get all blissed out on a nice spring day. What's going on in the heavenly planets is so far beyond anything we can even think of or imagine, but we can hear about it. Text 19. Similarly, the fruits of the jambu tree, which are full of pulp and have very small seeds, fall from a great height and break to pieces. Those fruits are the size of elephants, and the juice gliding down from them becomes a river named Jambu Nadi. This river falls a distance of 10,000 yojanas from the summit of Meromandra to the southern side of Ilavrita and floods the entire land of Ilavrita with juice. Prabhupada's commentary. You can only imagine how much juice there might be in a fruit that's the size of an elephant but has very tiny seeds. Naturally, the juice from the broken jambu fruit forms waterfalls and floods the entire land of Ilavrita. That juice produces an immense quantity of gold, as will be explained in the next verses. Oh my. Text 20 and 21. The mud on both banks of the river Jambu Nadi, being moistened by the flowing juice and then dried by the air and sunshine, produces huge quantities of gold, called Jambu Nada. The denizens of heaven use this gold for various kinds of ornaments. Therefore, all the inhabitants of the heavenly planets and their youthful wives are fully decorated with golden helmets, bangles, belts, and thus they enjoy life. Prabhupada's commentary. By the arrangement of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the rivers on some planets produce gold on their banks. The poor inhabitants of this earth, because of their incomplete knowledge, are captivated by a so-called Bhagavan who can produce a small quantity of gold. However, it is understood that in a higher planetary system, in this material world, the mud on the banks of the Jambu Nadi mixes with jambu juice, reacts with sunshine in the air, and automatically produces huge quantities of gold. Thus, the men and women are decorated there by various golden ornaments, and they look very nice. Unfortunately, on earth, there is a scarcity of gold, that the governments of the world try to keep it in reserve and issue paper currency. Because that currency is not backed up by gold, the paper they distribute as money is worthless. But nevertheless, the people on earth are very proud of material advancement. Wow. Now this purport, of course, they're timeless, but Prabhupada published these books around the mid-1970s. And this is now 2013. And we're seeing all the problems that are being caused by this currency not backed by gold, and the over issuance of these paper currencies. They have no value anyway, but now they're even worth less than no value, which is true because they're actually instruments of debt. Each piece of paper currency that's issued is owed interest on, so it's actually a debt instrument. So, even then, Prabhupada, because these principles are not anything new, this goes on, and Prabhupada's simply pointing it out here. And he says that people are proud of their material advancement, but where's their gold? They don't have any gold. They just have pieces of paper. And Prabhupada's going to go on to talk more about that. In modern times, girls and ladies have ornaments made of plastic instead of gold, and plastic utensils are used instead of gold ones. Yet people are very proud of their material wealth. Therefore, the people of this age are described as Manda Sumanda Matayo, Manda Bhagya Upadratu. In other words, they're extremely bad and slow to understand the opulence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. They've been described as Sumanda Mataya because their conceptions are so crippled that they accept a bluffer who produces a little gold to be God. Because they have no gold in their possession, they're actually poverty-stricken, and therefore they're considered unfortunate. Sometimes these unfortunate people want to be promoted to heavenly planets to achieve fortunate positions, as described in this verse. But pure devotees of the Lord are not at all interested in such opulence. Indeed, devotees sometimes compare the color of gold to that of bright golden stool. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has instructed devotees not to be allured by golden ornaments and beautifully decorated women. Nadanam, Najanam, Nasundarim. A devotee should not be allured by gold, beautiful women, or the prestige of having many followers. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu therefore confidently prayed, Mama Janmani, Jamanishvare, Bhavatad Bhaktirahaitukitvaye. My Lord, please bless me with your devotional service. Do not want anything else. A devotee may pray to be delivered from the material world. That's his only aspiration. Ainantana nujakin karam, patitamam vishame bhavam buddha, kripaya tavapada pankaja, stitaduli sadisam vichintaya. The humble devotee simply prays to the Lord, kindly pick me up from the material world, which is full of varieties of material opulence, and keep me under the shelter of your lotus feet. Narottam Das Thakur prays, O my Lord, O son of Maharaj Nanda, now you're standing before me with your consort, the daughter of Vrishabhanu, Srimati Radharani. Kindly accept me as the dust of your lotus feet. Please do not kick me away, for I have no other shelter. Similarly, Prabhupada Saraswati indicates that the position of the demigods who are decorated with golden helmets and other ornaments is no better than a phantasmagoria. The devotee is never allured by such opulences. He simply aspires to become the dust of the lotus feet of the Lord. Yeah, so the allurement of the opulences can be very alluring, and people aspire to go to this heavenly plane where they can experience and enjoy these material opulences, gold and rivers of mango juice and all these things, beautiful women decorated in golden ornaments, and they themselves can wear a helmet and golden ornaments, gold this, gold that. But devotees not interested. They see pebbles and gold, they see as the same material substance. They're not attracted, only attracted to devotional service of the Lord. And they pray, take me out of this material world, this world of birth and death. What good is gold going to do to get me out of birth and death? Only become more confused and not focus on what's really important in this human form of life, to get free from attachment to sense gratification by engaging in devotional service. And then there's gold glittering. Oh, here's the solution to all your problems. If you just had gold, you could buy whatever you wanted. You could buy protection, you could buy servants, you could buy relationships. People would be attracted to you because you had so much gold. People would fall at your feet because you had gold, because you can buy sense gratification with gold. What good is that? What good is that? That's the illusion. So, decorating oneself with golden ornaments, not so attractive to devotees. They don't want this. They see it as a phantasmagoria. And if you think about it, in the verse, it says that they see gold being like stool. Compare the color of gold to that of bright golden stool. So there they are, decorating their bodies with golden stool. Get stool on their head, stool on their arms, stool on around their necks. And they think so wonderful. It's actually devotee, pure devotee sees like golden stool. It's just material energy. Like in the fields, when the people in the villages pass stool, they sometimes go out to the field. So the sun shines on it, and the top part becomes dry. The bottom part, in touch with the ground, it's still wet, moist. The top part is now dry because the sun is shining on it. So you say, oh, the top part is good. So that's like the gold. Oh, the top part is very good. It's just the top part of the stool. Material energy, to be overly attracted. Text 22. On the side of Subharsva mountain stands a big tree called Mahakadamba, which is very celebrated. From the hollows of this tree flow rivers of honey, each about 5 yamas wide. This flowing honey falls incessantly from the top of Subharsva mountain, flows all around Ilavrita beginning from the western side. The whole land is saturated with the pleasing fragrance. Now you have to admit, materially, this is really, really incredible. We all know how wonderful honey is. And to have rivers, how many hollows it flow? 5 rivers of honey flowing from the hollows of this tree. So you've got honey flowing from the tree, you've got a river of mango juice, and you've got golden ornaments formed from the jambu fruit that falls and breaks open, and forms its river and dries on its banks so it becomes gold. Got honey. You say, where's the land of milk and honey? So materially, how attractive. My goodness, what a place. Materially. But it's material. It's a reflection of the opulence of the spiritual world in relationship to Krishna. This is just material. How incredible. Prabhupada's commentary. The distance between one hand and another, when spread both arms, is called a Vyāma. This comes to about 8 feet. Thus each of the rivers was about 40 feet wide, making a total of about 200 feet. All honey. Text 23. The air carrying the scent from the mouths who drink that honey perfumes the land for 100 yojanas around. So the scent coming from the mouths of drinking that honey, there's a scent that's produced, is like perfume. So the air is perfumed with that, and also the air is perfumed with those who were drinking the mango juice. Their bodies were emanating fragrance also coming out of their bodies as they attend Parvati, the consort of Lord Shiva. So the air has all these fragrances in it, the honey perfume and the coming from the mouths of those who are drinking the rivers of honey, and emanating from the bodies of those who are drinking the mango juice. Oh my goodness. Text 24. Hey Krishna, we gotta hold on to Krishna's lotus feet when we hear these descriptions. We take shelter nicely, because this is wild. Similarly, on Kamuda Mountain, there is a great banyan tree which is called Satvalsa, because it has 100 main branches. From those branches come many roots, from which many rivers are flowing. And these rivers flow down from the top of the mountain to the northern side of Ilavrita for the benefit of those who live there. Okay, so this is the rivers. Because of these flowing rivers, all of the people have ample supplies of milk, yogurt, honey, clarified butter, molasses, food grains, clothing, bedding, sitting places, and ornaments. All the objects they desire are sufficiently supplied for their prosperity. Therefore, they're very happy. Maybe Prabhupada's going to explain how these rivers are connected with supplying everything for everyone. Of course, we know when there's ample rain, then there's grains. And when there's grains, there's opulence, like that. So let's see. Well, Prabhupada, it's a nice purport here. The prosperity of humanity does not depend on a demoniac civilization that has no culture and no knowledge, but has only giant skyscrapers and huge automobiles always rushing down the highways. The products of nature are sufficient when there is a profuse supply of milk, yogurt, honey, food grains, ghee, molasses, dhotis, saris, bedding, sitting places, and ornaments. The residents are actually opulent. When a profuse supply of water from the river inundates the land, all these things can be produced and there will be no scarcity. And so it's water, because of the water. This all depends, however, on the performance of sacrifice, as explained in the Vedic literature. Anad bhavanti bhutani parjanyad anasambhava yagnad bhavati parjanyo yagna karma samudbhava. All living bodies subsist on food grains, which are produced from rains. Rains are produced by performance of yagna, sacrifice, and yagna is born of prescribed duties. These are the prescriptions given in Bhagavad Gita. If people follow these principles in full Krishna consciousness, human society will be prosperous, and they will be happy both in this life and in the next. So the yagna for this age is the Sankirtan movement of Lord Chaitanya chanting Hare Krishna and performing devotional service to the Lord, Lord Shri Krishna Chaitanya. That's why in the temples, worshipping the deity is always accompanied by the chanting of Hare Krishna. Devotees in this age don't perform silent meditation. The chanting is there, the Hare Krishna chanting. Because that's the sacrifice for this age. Chanting of the holy names of the Lord. Especially the chanting of Hare Krishna mantra. So there's, it says, rains are produced by performance of yajna, and yajna is born of prescribed duties. So this is how the varnashram system stabilizes the society. And he says, yajna is born of prescribed duties. So when the varnashram system is healthy and active, nicely being nicely manifested in human society, and the different four orders of social and spiritual life are visible and functioning nicely, then yajna is born of those prescribed duties. Because the varnashram system is not just for trying to get material amenities or even liberation. It's actually meant for the Yajna Purush, which is Krishna, or Lord Vishnu. That is who the sacrifices are performed for. So that yajna is born out of prescribed duties and provides a peaceful platform for performing the sacrifice, the Harinam Sankirtan. The Harinam Sankirtan comes out of the Varnashram society, preserves, it acts to a nice platform from which to proceed with the yajna. And people will have what they need, will not be so disturbed. There won't always be some emergency to deal with, that things will be going nicely. And people will be happy in this life, they have what they need, and the next life, and go to Krishna. Text 25. The residents of the material world who enjoy the products of these flowing rivers have no wrinkles on their bodies and no gray hair. They never feel fatigue, and perspiration does not give their bodies a bad odor. They're not afflicted by old age, disease, or untimely death. They do not suffer from chilly cold or scorching heat, nor do their bodies lose their luster. They all live very happily, without anxieties, until death. Wow. So it's not birth, death, old age, and disease. It's simply birth and death. They're born, they live very nicely the whole time, and then they die. But the kicker is, they die. And where do they go after that? Well, by many pious activities, one can be elevated to this wonderful, incredible material facility for sense enjoyment. And then when those pious credits are used up, then they have to leave. And where they go is, the laws of karma are pretty strict, but it's said that for the most part they come to Earth, back to planet Earth. Try to get those pious credits again on again. It may be something like, in this lifetime people experience that enjoying and then renouncing. So work hard all week, And on the weekend, you try to enjoy. You work hard all year, you get the vacation, and you go to some sunny island in the Caribbean somewhere for a month. But then you have to come back. You have to come back to work to get some more money. So it's something like that. One earns gets enough credits. This is a rewards program. Earn enough points, and you get to go to the heavenly planets for a fantastic vacation. Fantastic vacation, yeah, incredible. But then you have to leave. You die. And you have to, if you want to come back, you have to go back to work again, get those pious credits, get those reward points. So what's that? What is that? Is that attractive? When you look at the whole picture, when you look at both sides of the coin? No. Here we are with the dry stool on top and the wet stool on bottom again. So, but it does exist. And there are persons who are going on and on like this, lifetime after lifetime after lifetime, going up, coming down, going up, coming down. It is going on. It's there. So, we don't want that. Prabhupada's commentary. Although it's said that a devotee, a pure devotee, really, wherever they go, if they can be engaged in the service of the Lord and not distracted by the material energy, then they're okay. They can go to hell. We're going to hear about hell later, too. The hellish planets. These are the heavenly. We're going to hear about the hellish planets, too. It's the flip side. So, devotee's not attracted. They just want to go back to Krishna. No more birth and death. Even if it's just birth and death with no old age or disease in the middle, it's still birth and death. It has a beginning, it has an end. You want a situation where there's no birth or death. No old age and disease either, but no birth and death either. The actual divine energy. Prabhupada's commentary. This verse hints at the perfection of human society even within this material world. The miserable conditions of this material world can be corrected by a sufficient supply of milk, yogurt, honey, ghee, molasses, food grains, ornaments, bedding, sitting places, and so on. This is human civilization. Ample food grades can be produced through agricultural enterprises. Profuse supplies of milk and yogurt, ghee, can be arranged through cow protection. Abundant honey can be obtained if the forests are protected. Unfortunately, in modern civilization, men are busy killing cows that are the source of yogurt, milk, and ghee. They're cutting down all the trees that supply honey. They're opening factories to manufacture nuts, bolts, automobiles, and wine instead of engaging in agriculture. How can people be happy? They must suffer from all the misery of materialism. Their bodies become wrinkled, gradually deteriorate, until they become almost like dwarfs, and a bad odor emanates from their bodies because of unclean perspiration resulting from eating all kinds of nasty things. This is not human civilization. If people actually want happiness in this life, want to prepare for the best in the next life, they must adopt a Vedic civilization. In a Vedic civilization, there is full supply of all the necessities mentioned above. It's just a nice way to live. Whether concerned about Krishna or not, it's just a nice way to live. You hear that description because of all the things that are going on, killing the cows and cutting down the trees and factories. The bodies become wrinkled, deteriorate, and give off a bad odor because of the unclean perspiration resulting from eating all kinds of nasty things. Smell bad. It comes right out of the pores of their bodies. That's it. Text 26. There are other mountains beautifully arranged around the foot of Mount Meru, like the filaments around the whorl of a lotus. Their names are Kuranga, Kurara, Kushumba, Vaikanka, Trikuta, Shishira, Patanga, Ruchika, Nishada, Srinivas, Kapila, Sankha, Vaidurya, Jarudi, Hamsa, Shaba, Naga, Kalanjar, and Narada. So there are other mountains all around Mount Meru, like the filaments of a lotus flower. If you remember, Mount Meru is that, I don't know how many yojanas, but incredibly miles high mountain made of gold. And all around it are these other smaller mountains. So they're like filaments in a lotus. Text 27. On the eastern side of Sumera mountain are two mountains named Jatra and Devakuta, which extend to the north and south for 18,000 yojanas, 144,000 miles. Similarly, on the western side of Sumera are two mountains named Pavana and Pariyatra, which also extend north and south for the same distance. And on the southern side of Sumera are two mountains named Kailasa and Karavira, which extend east and west, 18,000 yojanas. And on the northern side of Sumera, extending for the same distance, east and west, are two mountains named Trishringa and Makara. The width and height of all these mountains is 2,000 yojanas, 16,000 miles. Sumeru, a mountain of solid gold, shining as brilliantly as fire, is surrounded by these 8 mountains. So, around the foot, arranged as filaments, are the mountains from the previous verse. It's like about 19 mountains all around the foot of Mount Sumeru. And then there are other mountains, north, south, east, and west, 2 each in the different directions, that are very, very large mountains. And so there's those 19 mountains, and their dimensions weren't given, I don't think. No. So they're beautifully arranged. The exact dimensions aren't given, but the exact dimensions of these mountains, north, south, east, and west, is given. And they're very large. Text 28. In the middle of the summit of Meru is the township of Lord Brahma. Each of its 4 sides is calculated to extend for 10 million yojanas, 80 million miles. It is made entirely of gold, and therefore learned scholars and sages call it Satakumbhi. In the middle of Mount Sumeru. Okay, so on its 4 sides, it's calculated 80 million miles. Something like a square, although it's not necessarily square, but it says on its 4 sides extends 10 million miles, or 80 million miles, and is made of gold, his township. And that's right on top of Mount Sumeru, on the very top. He lives on top of this golden mountain. 29. Surrounding Brahmapuri in all directions are the residents of the 8 principal governors of the planetary systems, beginning with King Indra. These abodes are similar to Brahmapuri, but are 1/4 the size. So they're 20 million miles on each side. And they're 8 principal governors in all directions. So all around Brahmapuri, which is on top of Mount Sumeru, and it appears that these are also, we don't know where they are in terms of Mount Sumeru, but it says surrounding in all directions. So we're going to get some more description here. Prabhupada's commentary, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur confirms that the townships of Lord Brahman and the 8 subordinate governors of the planetary systems, beginning with Indra, are mentioned in other Puranas. Brahma's township is known as Manavati, and those of his assistants, such as Indra and Agni, are known as Amaravati, Tejavati, Samyamani, Krishnangana, Shradavati, Gandhavati, Mahodaya, Yasovati. Brahmapuri is situated in the middle, and the other 8 puris surround it in all directions. Okay, so it appears they're all on top of Mount Sumeru, which is quite large, and they're surrounding Lord Brahma's residence. They have their residences. And his residence on each side measures 80 million miles, or is it 80 million yojanas? No, 80 million miles. And each of the 8 principal assistants, or demigods, such as Indra and the others, Indra and Agni, who manage the universal management there, utilities department. They, surrounding this, there's 8 of them. And their townships, or their residences, are 1/4 the size, so they're 20 million miles on each side of each of those residents. Okay. It looks like that. Was that the end? Yeah. All right, so that was the end of the description of Jambudvip. And, no. Text 17, okay. Yeah, there was just, yeah, that's the end of chapter 16. So we still have a little time. We can begin chapter 17, which is entitled The Descent of the River Ganges. Okay. Okay. And as usual, there's a little summary of what to expect in the chapter. And we can read that. The 17th chapter describes the origin of the Ganges River and how it flows in and around Ilavritavarsa. There's also a description of the prayers Lord Shiva offers to Lord Sankarshan, part of the quadruple expansions of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Lord Vishnu once approached Bali Maharaj while the king was performing a sacrifice. The Lord appeared before him as Trivikram, or Vamana, and begged alms from the king in the form of 3 steps of land. With 2 steps, Lord Vamana covered all 3 planetary systems and pierced the covering of the universe with the toes of his left foot. A few drops of water from the causal ocean leaked through this hole and fell on the head of Lord Shiva, where they remained for 1,000 millenniums. These drops of water are the sacred Ganges River. It first flows onto the heavenly planets, which are located on the soles of Lord Vishnu's feet. The Ganges River is known by many names, such as the Bhagirati and the Jahnavi. It purifies Dhruva-loka and the planets of the seven sages, because both Dhruva and the sages have no other desire than to serve the Lord's lotus feet. The Ganges River, emanating from the lotus feet of the Lord, inundates the heavenly planets, especially the moon, and then flows through Brahmapuri atop Mount Meru. Here the river divides into 4 branches known as Sita, Alakananda, Chakshu, and Bhadra, which then flow down to the ocean of salt water. The branch known as Sita flows through Sekara Parvata and Gandhamanana Parvata, and then flows down to Bhadrasva-Varsa, where it mixes with the ocean of salt water in the west. The Chakshu branch flows through Malyavangiri, and after reaching Ketumala Varsa, mixes with the ocean of salt water in the west. The branch known as Bhadra flows onto Mount Meru, Mount Kamuda, and the Nila, Sveta, and Shringavan mountains before it reaches Kurudesh, where it flows into the ocean of salt water in the north. The Alakanda branch flows through Brahmalaya, crosses over many mountains, including Hemakuta, Himakuta, and then reaches Bharatavarsa, where it flows into the northern side of the ocean of salt water. Many other rivers and their branches flow through the 9 Varsas. The tract of land known as Bharatavarsa is the field of activities, and the other 8 Varsas are for persons who are meant to enjoy heavenly comfort. In each of these 8 beautiful provinces, the celestial denizens enjoy various standards of material comfort and pleasure. A different incarnation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead distributes his mercy in each of the 9 Varsas of Jambudvip. In the Ilavrita Varsa, Lord Shiva is the only male, and there he lives with his wife Bhavani, who is attended by many maidservants. If any other male enters that province, Bhavani curses him to become a woman. Lord Shiva worships Lord Shankarshan by offering various prayers, one of which is as follows. My dear Lord, please liberate all your devotees from material life. Bind all the non-devotees to the material world. Without your mercy, no one can be released from the bondage of material existence. It's interesting, that prayer. There's another prayer that I say, the Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. So here's another prayer. My dear Lord, please liberate all your devotees from material life. Bind all the devotees to the material world. Without your mercy, no one can be released from the bondage of material existence. Different prayers to the Lord. So this is text 1. Sukadeva Goswami said, My dear King, Lord Vishnu, the enjoyer of all sacrifices, appeared as Vamanadev in the sacrificial arena of Bali Maharaj. Then he extended his left foot to the end of the universe and pierced a hole in its covering with the nail of his big toe. Through the hole, the pure water of the causal ocean entered this universe as the Ganges water. Having washed the lotus feet of the Lord, which are covered with reddish powder, and the water of the Ganges acquired a very beautiful pink color. Every living being can immediately purify his mind of material contamination by touching the transcendental water of the Ganges. Yet its waters remain ever pure. Because the Ganges directly touches the lotus feet of the Lord before descending within this universe, she is known as Vishnupati. Later she received other names like Jhanavi and Bhagirati. After 1,000 millenniums, the water of the Ganges descended on Dhruvaloka, topmost planet in this universe. Therefore all learned sages and scholars proclaim Dhruvaloka to be Vishnupad, situated on Lord Vishnu's lotus feet. So, this is how the Ganges is manifest here on this gross platform, the gross material platform. Ganges is coming from the causal ocean. And when Lord Vāsadeva extended his left foot and extended it to the end of the universe, extended his left foot all the way to the end of the universe and pierced a hole in its covering with the nail on his big toe. Through the hole, the pure water of the causal ocean entered the universe as the Ganges River. That's interesting because he was approaching, in his form incarnated as Vāmadeva, he was approaching Bali Maharaj to deliver him. He asked for 3 steps of land as charity from the king. He appeared as a Brahmin. He wanted 3 steps of land to be given by the king as his charity. First step covered all the lower planets, the lower half, and the second step, with his left foot, he covered all the way to the end of the universe and pierced a hole in it. Wow. Such a great devotee, Bali Maharaj. Such a great devotee. Because of that pastime with Bali Maharaj, somehow the Lord was inclined to do that, to bring the river Ganges to this earthly planet for everyone's purification. That was in that pastime with Bali Maharaj as Vāmadeva. Because the Ganges directly touches the lotus feet of the Lord before descending within this universe, she's known as Vishnupati. After 1,000 millenniums, the water of the Ganges descended on Dhruvaloka. Prabhupada's commentary. In this verse, Sukadeva Goswami describes the glories of the Ganges River. The water of the Ganges is called Patita Pavani, the deliverer of all sinful living beings. It's a proven fact that a person who regularly bathes in the Ganges is purified both externally and internally. Externally, his body becomes immune to all kinds of disease, and internally he gradually develops a devotional attitude toward the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Throughout India, many thousands of people live on the banks of the Ganges, and by regularly bathing in her waters, they're undoubtedly being purified, both spiritually and materially. Many sages, including Sankaracharya, have composed prayers in praise of the Ganges, and the land of India itself has become glorious because such rivers as the Ganges, Yamuna, Godavari, Kaveri, Krishna, and Narmada flow there. Anyone living on the land adjacent to these rivers is naturally advanced in spiritual consciousness. There's a quote, Srila Madhvacharya. Standing on his right foot and extending his left to the edge of the universe, Lord Vamana became known as Trivikram, the incarnation who performed 3 heroic deeds. Text 2. Dhruva Maharaj, the famous son of Maharaj Uttanapada, is known as the most exalted devotee of the Supreme Lord because of his firm determination in executing devotional service. Knowing that the sacred Ganges water washes the lotus feet of Lord Vishnu, Dhruva Maharaj, situated on his own planet, to this very day accepts that water on his head with great devotion. Because he constantly thinks of Krishna very devoutly within the core of his heart, he's overcome with ecstatic anxiety. Tears flow from his half-open eyes, and eruptions appear on his entire body. Prabhupada's commentary. When a person is firmly fixed in devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he's described as Viravrata, fully determined. Such a devotee increases his ecstasy in devotional service more and more. Thus, as soon as he remembers Lord Vishnu, his eyes fill with tears. This is a symptom of a Mahabhagavata. Dhruva Maharaj maintained himself in that devotional ecstasy, and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also gave us a practical example of transcendental ecstasy when he arrived at Jagannath Puri. His pastimes there are fully narrated in Chaitanya Charitamrita. Such a devotee increases his devotional service more and more. So when they become determined, a person is firmly fixed in devotional service, becomes fully determined, and increases his ecstasy in devotional service more and more. To the point that as soon as he remembers Lord Vishnu, his eyes fill with tears. So Dhruva Maharaj was on that level of devotion. Simply to think, as soon as he remembers Lord Vishnu, his eyes fill with tears. Well, I think that's it for today. Yeah, these descriptions. Yeah, it's good. Good to hear these things. It's all good. Hare Krishna.